I'm big on communication. It is really, really, really important to me. Raising 4 kids, I worked hard to teach them the value of clear communication, and I've always strived to communicate clearly with others. In fact, according to the Clifton Strengths Talent Assessment, communication is in my top 5 strengths. So you can imagine the internal conflict I felt when, at the age of 56, I got married. And suddenly, it seemed like I couldn't communicate about anything. I found myself asking, am I not making myself clear? How many ways do I have to frame this? Not long after we got married, my husband and I were reading a book together, Hold Me Tight, and I had one of those light bulb moments. I discovered that communication wasn't the problem. We talked all the time, but I realized something deeper. We were missing connection. When I didn't feel heard or valued, I didn't yell. I shut down. I could literally feel the drawbridge to my heart going up. Clink, clink, clink. And most of the time, I didn't even know why. I felt cold, distant, even walled off. And the problem wasn't just the drawbridge. A drawbridge needs a wall, right? It was the whole wall. A wall I had spent a lifetime building, and I didn't even realize it was still there. You see, walls do keep people out, and I learned as a child how to protect myself. I'd already spent countless healing sessions, countless hours dismantling that wall. I'd done the deep work. But you know what? New relationships, new situations, new transitions like marriage have a way of exposing things that we didn't know were still buried. My heart hurt, and I wanted to hide. But that book, Hold Me Tight, began to give me language and understanding. And one of the most eye-opening things I learned was this. It was a study by Dr. Naomi Eisenberger. It shows that rejection and emotional disconnection activate the same part of the brain as physical pain. So when you say, my feelings are hurt, it's not just a phrase, it's science. It's real. And I was hurting. The hurting was real. So, this episode, it's for the woman who's smiling on the outside but walled off on the inside. Because if your marriage has communication issues, sweet friend, it might not be the words. It might be the connection. Hey there, marvelous mom. Welcome to Mom2Mom Mentoring. I'm your host, Misty Hughes, certified ICF life and leadership coach, strengths champion, SYMBIS facilitator, speaker, wife, Grammy, and daughter of the King of Glory. This podcast exists to help you live powerfully, lead with purpose, and love with passion, even in the middle of your everyday mess. I created this space because I know what it feels like to look like everything's fine on the outside while you're unraveling on the inside. That's why today I'm offering you a free resource that can help you take the first step toward emotional wholeness in your marriage. It's called Becoming Holy and Whole, Naming, Feeling, and Freeing Your Emotions. You can download it right now at mom2mommentoring.com/feelings. Now, I want to invite you to settle in. If you're folding laundry, keep the socks flying. If you're carpooling, go ahead and ignore the snack wrappers for now. And if you can, grab that lukewarm coffee you left on the counter and pretend we're just two friends sitting across the kitchen table, heart open, mascara smudged, but here for the real stuff. Because what I'm about to share next just might change how you approach every argument going forward. Hundreds of studies show that loving, secure connection is one of the most powerful protectors against trauma, stress, and even physical pain. God wired us for connection. But when that connection is missing, especially in marriage, we go into what psychologists call primal panic. We feel threatened, alone, abandoned, unsafe. And we typically do one of two things. We cling and control, trying to draw comfort from our spouse and to get them to do what we need in that moment, or we withdraw, detach, try to protect ourselves. I've done both. Maybe you have too. But what we really want to know is, can I count on you? Will you show up for me? Do I matter? In the early months of our marriage, I had all these questions and more. And from a place of uncertainty and fear, my husband and I unknowingly created a pattern, a dance. He'd say something that hurt my feelings. The drawbridge would start to go up, or sometimes it would just slam shut. He'd sense my withdrawal and try to figure out what he'd done, and then he'd try to fix it, making me pull back even more. My withdrawal would send him questioning himself, frustrated with me. He'd step back and I'd become more hurt, and we'd keep dancing, spinning, down, down, down. Perhaps you too have your own familiar dance moves. We weren't necessarily fighting. We were spinning, out of control, and neither of us could seem to stop it. I mapped out our cycle. While that didn't fix the problem, it did help me to see and understand more fully what was going on. But there was more work to do. When you can see your pattern, oftentimes it gives you the power to change your pattern. The process of noticing, naming, and navigating emotions is what is fully needed to develop a new dance. It wasn't enough to just see where we were going into this downward spiral. We had to have ways to stop the spiral from happening. A new dance, new moves. Perhaps you are saying, Misty, I'm right there with you. I want to get to an emotionally healthy place where I can be responsive to my spouse and my children. But here's the deal. Unless we are connected, no amount of communication will help. You can talk till you're blue in the face. But what does connection look like, feel like? What is involved for true connection? In the book, Hold Me Tight, Dr. Sue Johnson says connection is built on 3 essential needs, and they form the acronym R, A-R-E. A, accessibility. Can I reach you? Are you emotionally available to me? This means staying open to your partner even when you have doubts and feelings, struggling through your emotions and not shutting the other out, being aware of your emotions but not allowing yourself to be ruled by them. It really helps here to know what emotions you are having and name them. This was my missing piece in dissecting our dance. I saw the pattern, but we both had to learn to name what we were feeling. And this is exactly why I created the guide that I mentioned earlier, Becoming Holy and Whole, naming, feeling, and freeing your emotions. I wanted to give you some tools to stop the spiral within and begin the journey of creating your new steps. Don't forget, you can download it now. The link is in the show notes. The second part of this connection is R, responsiveness. When I reach you, will you respond with care, not correction? Can you empathize? Will you judge me? Don't try to fix it. Be comforting and caring. Think about a time that someone responded to you with empathy, without judgment. It drew you to that person. Now, think about a time when you shared something and someone responded to you with criticism, with correction. It shut you down. So a part of Being able to connect to our partner is to respond in a way that brings you together and not separates you. The last part of the R connected model is E, engagement. Do I matter to you? Will you stay close and emotionally present? Engaged is actually defined as being absorbed, attracted, pulled, captivated, pledged, involved. Emotional engagement is a very special kind of attention that we give only to a loved one. Gazing at them, touching them, being emotionally present. Well, I began to realize we could talk about what he did or what I did. We apologized with the big but in the way, defending, rationalizing, and never getting to the hurt of the heart. We see a powerful example of this played out in the Word of God with Saul and Samuel. In 1 Samuel 13, King Saul found himself in a high stress situation. Ever had one of those? The enemy was advancing, his troops were scattering, and Samuel was late showing up. So Saul panicked and he made a rash decision. Ever do that in a high stress situation? He offered a sacrifice that he wasn't authorized to give. When he's confronted by Samuel, Saul doesn't take responsibility. His buts get in the way. He says, but the people were scattering, but you didn't come. But the Philistines were near, but I had to do it. Sound familiar? Fear-based reactions, finger pointing, excuses. Instead of naming what he felt, Samuel, I was afraid. He defended himself, and it cost him his kingdom. Friend, hear me with gentleness. You don't have to keep reacting from fear. Oh, I know, it might be a trauma response, but you have the power to get the help you need. Even if your response is rooted in past trauma, even if you've never had the tools before, even if it's a generational response, God can and wants to equip you to pause, feel, and connect. Let's stop saying, well, this is just the way I am. And let's start saying, Father, help me learn new dance moves. God has the power to transform. But first, you have to own them. Had Saul owned his own fear with Samuel? Had he confessed and repented of his action instead of defending and playing the blame game? The outcome may have been totally different. Beloved, are you ready to learn some new dance steps? Here are 4 steps that you can begin to practice in times of peace and conflict. Maestro, start the music, please. Number 1, recognize your cycle or your dance. Every couple has a pattern, a predictable emotional cycle. Maybe you get loud and he shuts down. Maybe you avoid and he presses in. You can't stop what you can't see and what you haven't identified. Start observing, not blaming. The second thing, find the raw spots. Not only yours, but begin to understand your partner's. We all have them. Triggers, unhealed wounds that flare up when touched. If you get the feeling or say to yourself, this reminds me of something, this feels familiar, that's a clue. There's a raw spot somewhere that needs tended to. My mom had this gaping scar on her knee. I was somewhat of a stinker, and I'd often touch that scar just to watch her jump. As a child, she'd gotten caught in a barbed wire fence and tore open her knee. She didn't get the stitches and the care that she needed, and it never healed properly. It was a tender spot the rest of her life. You couldn't touch that scar without causing her pain and to jump. Perhaps your triggers are places of deep wounding that have never been tended to. The Word tells us that He binds the brokenhearted. Beloved, have you been brokenhearted and never taken the time to let the Lord heal and restore you? That's often where the healing begins. The next move that you can learn is one that proved to be very powerful in the early years of my marriage. And we still practice this move today. Ask these two questions. How do you feel, and what do you need from me? During our premarital coaching, our counselor recommended that we start asking each other these questions. For my husband, it was awkward because he'd not taken time to assess or discuss feelings most of his life. This was a new muscle that he began to exercise. For me, the feeler, it was awkward because I had to struggle through my inner dialogue that said, my feelings are too much. They don't really care. No one cares. He doesn't understand. Over time, as we stayed consistent in the awkward and uncomfortable space, it created safety and gave us clarity. It helped us to stop assuming and start attuning. And the last thing that you can do to begin to learn new moves is to stop the starvation. You see, disconnection causes emotional starvation, but it's not always dramatic. Sometimes it's just a quiet, subtle neglect. Don't wait for that blow up. Start small. Check in, hold eye contact, choose presence. I have an image that I keep on my computer of Nimrod's fortress. It was a place that my kids and I visited when we went to Israel back in 2008. Areas of the fortress wall were put together by nice, carved, cut-out stones. In other places of the wall, it looked like large rocks had been shoved into place. A placard explained that during times of peace, the wall was made strong and secure. The stones were chiseled and carved and fit together snugly. But in times of war, the wall was made by shoving these stones in place. You could see the strong sections of the wall that were made during these times of peace as compared to those made during times of war. Beloved, your marriage, your family, it is being attacked from outside the walls for sure. You can begin to build during times of peace. You can become stronger now. Don't wait until the wall has been breached. Start connecting to God and with your own heart now. In my free guide, I include feeling word lists and prompts to help you do exactly this. Grab it at Mom2MomMentoring.com/feelings. Now, before we close, here's your one small but life-changing thing for this week. Take just 60 seconds. Go ahead, set a reminder if you need to. Pause either in the quiet of the morning or right before bed and ask yourself these two simple questions. What am I feeling and what do I need? Not what does my spouse need to fix or how can I change them, but what's really going on in my heart. Maybe what's coming out is anger. You've been snapping, sighing, shutting doors a little too loudly, but underneath there might be an unspoken hurt or the sting of rejection that's never had words. Maybe you've gone quiet, shut down, not because you don't care, but because it feels safer to shut down. But underneath that silence, is there a tender longing not to be forgotten, to be seen, to be heard? Those are real needs, not selfish ones, not dramatic ones, just human ones. And Jesus sees every one of them. So, as you pause this week, ask yourself these two questions. What am I really feeling? What do I actually need? That's where your healing begins. Not by fixing everything at once, not by fixing everyone else, but by getting honest with your heart and letting God meet you there with gentleness. Then take a moment and invite Jesus to meet you there. Remember, He binds up the brokenhearted. He invites you into emotional healing without shame. He wants to restore your heart so connection can grow again. If this episode spoke to you, would you do two things? Share it with another woman who might be struggling in silence. Then leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Your words help more women find hope. And don't forget to grab the free resource, Becoming Holy and Whole, Naming, Feeling, and Freeing Your Emotions. You'll find the link in the show notes, or just go to Mom2MomMentoring.com/feelings. Remember, you were created to live powerfully, lead with purpose, and love with passion, so that when you shine, you give others permission to shine too.